All right, good afternoon, everybody who's joining us from the waiting room. As always, we like to try to just give everybody a moment to rush through the virtual doors, if you will. We know that sometimes it takes a moment for folks' Zoom accounts or their window to actually get in. We are recording this session, this conversation, and we will be posting the recording and some scripted text from it, both to the Pat and CS web pages, and of course our CS and PA, CS for All Schoology course. So if for some reason you get kicked out of the Zoom or you're multitasking and you feel like you've missed out on an essential piece of information, don't fret. We promise that all of it will be made available directly after our session today. As we're getting settled, I do ask, if you don't mind, please keep your microphone and your camera disabled for now. Judd and I will kind of riff off of each other and answer some of what we think are the big looming questions regarding the Pennsylvania 712 computer science certification and certification exam. And we ultimately do want to open it up to any questions that you may have from our conversation. So if you've got questions as we're going, you can feel free to put those in the text box, or if you'd like to unmute yourself, we will after we get through some of the basic information, we'll kind of set that time aside for open question and answer. We know that 2020, the best way to sum it up is weird and very unexpected. So I know Judd is joining us kind of on the move. It's not because you may not see him visually right now, but he is with us. If you have any questions following this session about how to get the recording or about the actual exam or certification itself, we have our triaged email account listed right there on the screen. And if one of my team members would pop that into the chat window, I'd appreciate it. That is the csforall@patent.net. You may also know us by the pasmart@patent.net. If you use either of those email addresses, it'll get back to us and we'll be able to answer your questions or set up a time to discuss whatever it is on your mind in more detail. But without further ado, I know we're all here for the same reason, or I think so. If not, I'm glad you stumbled into our Zoom room. But we are going to talk about kind of what's happening big picture with the state of the secondary or the 712 computer science certification and exam. We've kind of broken this down into some what we think are some general questions. And we'll start with the certification itself. I think Judd, you're still with us, right, friend?
I am still with you. Can you hear me okay?
Awesome. Yeah. So
All
I
right.
think Judd, in this capacity, like in this realm, like there hasn't been much change. I don't know that there's been any change in what the communication that we've been sharing over the past few years about the certification itself. We know that the certification is being rolled out as an add-on certification, and it's available to anyone who has a valid Pennsylvania teaching certification. Some of the questions that though are I guess keep circulating or keep coming back to us are really why and exactly do I have to, those kind of questions. So once this becomes live, what implications does that have for folks that are currently teaching CS?
So I think, you teed it up really well, Sarah, and I want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody for hopping on the call, and I apologize as I am in transition. I had to pick up my son from school, so if I break up or if I have to hop on mute, Sarah, I hope you can kind of pick up where I left off, and I promise I'll hop back in. So with regards to, just if I'm teaching CS now, what does that mean with the upcoming certification? If folks remember way back, and I'm going to go in the Wayback Machine to 2016, the legislature passed a bill as part of Chapter 4 called Act 86. And that was an expansion of who was able to teach computer science at the 712 level. And it really left it to the local decision making. So local school districts or school entities could pass a board policy, could pass a board policy that would allow them to have students count computer science as a graduation credit. And so that opened up the door. Counting that graduation credit in math or science opened up the door so that a math and or a science teacher could be added to the teacher of record for computer science. So in addition to the business technology teacher, you would have this math and or science teacher that could teach. So one of our core principles and goals was to make sure that we were not moving or taking folks out of those seats. So even though the certification would go live, if you would visit the department's FAQ site on STEM and computer science, you're going to see that not much changes, that all of the individuals that are currently able to teach at the local level in 712 computer science would still be able to teach computer science once that certification goes live. Now, the goal would be that, we want to make sure that we have the types of experiences for kids that are best preparing them for the world that's going to require the skills necessary for success. So that would be like, whether it would be computational thinking or coding. We really want to make sure that our educators are skilled and ready to provide those experiences. So all of those individuals that are currently teaching would still be available, but we would be highly encouraging folks to continue to engage in professional learning and to build out their skill set. So to engage in our CS&PA initiatives, to engage with their local intermediate unit, to possibly take a CS course at the post-secondary level. All of those things we are still encouraging, but at this point, the certification will not trigger any loss of an educator from the seat for computer science. And as we continue to move forward around the policy goals for this, our hope would be one of two pathways. Either A, that the current person that is teaching computer science at the 7th through 12th grade level could continue teaching computer science for up to the next 3 years. Under their current certification with no 712 CS certification. They could stay in that seat. But then after that 3 years, it would trigger an opportunity where we would want to see that person who now would have essentially a temporary licensure to go and take the 712 computer science exam and to continue to build out that skill set. The other option that we would see in that space would be that the individual could take the exam right away, get certified, and then that would really be a moot point. But we would like to see a pairing of professional learning and a pairing of the 712 certification exam 3 to 5 years after the certification goes live.
Thanks, Judd. So again, like I mentioned, to tee that up, that messaging has not changed over the last several years. And when we release this recording, as you've mentioned, that information has and continues to be on the PDE FAQ page for CS and STEM under who can teach CS. So, if that was for those that are joining us live or watching this recording, if that was a concern, you can strike that off your list. If you're teaching CS, you can keep teaching CS, and boy, are we glad that you do, and we want you to continue doing that.
And Sarah, if I could expand just one thing, I didn't mention, because I just sort of directed towards the FAQ. It is broader than the business technology certified educator. We did expand that to the K-12 Technology Education Certified Educator, and it also includes that middle school certification if you're teaching in that middle school arena. So I would encourage folks, as they're continuing to build out their program, to go to the FAQ, because we do have a broad list of certifications. And I want to add on, I want to also address something that you said at the onset, that this is an add-on certificate. So what we're really excited for in that space is if you're that language arts or social studies or art teacher, or one of the certifications that is not currently outlined in our FAQ, you can, if you've had that lived experience, or maybe you were a computer science minor way back in the day, or you just like to tinker and toil in that space and you feel comfortable, you can now, if you have a Pennsylvania certification, you will be able to take that exam and add it on to your current certification. So I think you had mentioned that at the onset. I think that is a critical distinguishing point, that it is an add-on.
Thanks, Judd. I did, for those of us that are joining us, or for those of you that are joining us in the Zoom session, we did link that FAQ directly in the chat window if you want to bookmark that now. And we kind of did an excerpt of all of the certifications that are currently approved for CS teachers. And the list is very long. Judd, the only real quick follow-up to that, and then we'll get to the questions about the exam itself, is some folks that are and I would have been one of these when I was in the classroom, especially in the middle school space or elementary folks. So that K-8 space for computer science. As we continue to have this conversation, we are referring to the 712 computer science certification, yes, and the 712 CS exam. What does that mean for our K-8 folks for certification purposes and in the classroom?
So, with regards to the K-8 arena, it is still wide open. We would still abide by what's laid out in the FAQ. So if you're teaching that STEM computer science special, you can continue to do so. There wouldn't be a requirement for you to have the 712 certification. That 712 certification is really talking about building out those standalone courses within the vertical portfolio of an LEA. So maybe it's, we want to offer CS1, we want to offer CS2, we want to offer AP, whatever sort of that progression looks like. But if we're talking in that elementary to middle school space, it is still wide open. We just want to make sure to be providing the professional learning experiences. I will say, we have had a renewed conversation about the possibility of opening up a K-12 or a K-8 CS endorsement, where it would just be a space where folks could maybe engage through the current K-8 model, build the competencies to get the endorsement. It could be something that would be offered by an intermediate unit or a post-secondary institution. We've seen some models with the STEM endorsement where it's been an add-on as part of a master's program. So that door isn't closed on this idea of a CS endorsement. It's one of the spaces that we're going to lean on, Sarah, you and the team, to activate, and the stakeholders to say, this is something that we need, we want, and it will help to expand opportunities for kids. So I would say that is still in conversation. That door isn't closed, but for the future right now, the only certification pathway we have will be 712, and it leaves the K-8 space open to those individuals that feel comfortable and have the skill set to teach as deemed so by the local school entity.
Thanks, Judd. We did get a question from the chat, and it kind of leads us into the kind of part of our session about the exam itself. Again, if you have other questions about the certification, you can go ahead and post those in the chat, or we'll open it up to just open forum for question and answer in just a few minutes. So obviously, when we think about certification, we think about how do you prove that you can get the certification. And that really brings us to the point about the exam itself. And I think that's where a lot of people are kind of sitting and waiting for the, you know, the information drop that we have today. You know, and I have to preface it that we aren't where we thought we would be, but it's 2020. What can we say? So when we think about, so as we get into this part about the exam itself, this is where the messaging or our communication, there is some new information to share, and it is updated. But first, as Judd, you've already mentioned and hit on about, you know, who can get that add-on certification. That add-on, as we've mentioned, I want to reiterate again, this add-on is available to any teacher, any educator in Pennsylvania that has a Pennsylvania certification. If they would like to add this on, and that's how we use that terminology, they can do so. And this exam is really that conduit for them to do so. So
yes.
you can, if you were, you know, if you were like me, you were a school librarian and a classroom teacher, yes, you can take the exam and apply for certification. If you are you know, a science teacher or a learning support teacher or an English language teacher, it doesn't matter. If you have a PA certification, you can choose to go this route and apply for the certification. Now let's get to the exam itself. And this is, like I said, this is where we've got some maybe good news, bad news. The good news is it's coming, right? The bad news is we had hoped that it had been, that we were really, if you'd gotten your time machine, you went back to this point last year, we were excited and we were on track to launch the exam right now. That was our goal, but it's 2020. So Judd, can you give us an updated perspective on when we think the exam is going to be made public?
Yeah, no, first off, we appreciate everyone's patience and waiting for this, because it is a long time coming. And we were really hopeful that it would have been out by our goal to date is that the test will be live and ready for folks to take no later than December 1, 2020. And our goal would be, you know, would be sooner than that. I just want to, for full transparency, you know, I want to manage expectations for folks on the call, because we have been delayed, and, you know, it was a procurement issue for us. But no later than December 2020, you'll be able to take the test live here in Pennsylvania. So that's what we're excited for. And then once that goes live, we're going to get it out to this network immediately. So if it's before December 1, if it's October 30, we'll get it to you all immediately.
So, and just in case, I think maybe there was an audio cutout. What Judd just said was December 1st this year, December 2020, December 1, like 12/1, 2020. So we think we're on track to hit that now.
December 1, 2020. That is definitely the end goal. And I don't know if I had cut out on that part too, but, you know, there is a possibility it could be before December 1, 2020. And as soon as we get that information, we'll get it out through this network.
Absolutely. So now that we've kind of covered that, just some things that we want to also share along the lines with taking the Praxis itself. How and where can PA educators take that exam? Judd, first off, and this is a question we've fielded a lot, is that, hey, well, the exam is available. Like, what if I live in, you know, outside of Philly? Can I just go take the exam in New Jersey? What would happen if I did that? If I'm just really excited about it and I wanted to take it before it launched, is that a possibility?
So from what I understand around the nuances of that testing process, there would be like essentially it would be treated as if it was an out-of-state certification. So until it is live in our space, it would be almost like you would be certified by New Jersey. If that
And I
makes
think
sense.
it does. And if you've been a part of this conversation with us for the past several years, that messaging has been consistent. So, and this is the same as other, any other certification exam, and add-on or not, the messaging is consistent with from the PDE site and the Praxis ETS site about that as well. So the short note on that is that you could take the exam if you really wanted to in another state, but at this point it would not be a Pennsylvania, the scores would not be reported to Pennsylvania in the department, and they would not be viewed and used for a certification application. So
you would have to do an out-of-state application for honoring that cert. And, I think at this point, having just a little bit of patience, would be the way to go, because it is going to happen here in 2020.
Right. So, and to that point, and Judd, we're glad to see you. So we know that it's coming. It could happen any day, but really the date that we've got circled on our calendar is December 1st. In the meantime, there's a lot of information on the ETS Praxis website, and some of it is absolutely great, and you can start digging in about the exam. But some of it is a little bit confusing, considering the Pennsylvania exam has not launched. So we will, in our follow-up to this recording, we will be providing some nuanced information about that. But I do want to clear up any confusion and I just checked it and tested it as a user myself again yesterday morning. If you were kind of browsing the Praxis site and you were looking at test centers right now, if you opened up a Pennsylvania test center, you might actually see that they have the CS certification test listed. But even though that is available on kind of the wider Praxis website, once you actually log into the Praxis site as a Pennsylvania educator, the CS certification is not available. Like it does not even show up as an option. So I want to put that out there to the field, in case you're like, well, I was on the Praxis website and the other day, and on the homepage right there, it said sign up for a test, and I could sign up. So there is a little bit of nuance there. The other, we keep referencing it's 2020. Praxis has been providing updates about their safety measures and their testing procedures in light of the pandemic. And we will provide the link to that specific page on the Praxis website. But Praxis is providing at-home test taking at this point. It is a temporary measure. We don't know when that might go away, but for what it is now, the CS certification exam is being offered as a take-at-home offering. So once that test goes live for Pennsylvania, you will have the opportunity, as of right now, because of the pandemic, to take it at home with the Praxis safety protocols and test security measures. Judd, is there anything else that you think maybe they should know about the exam on that note?
I think one of the questions that you had asked me previously was about cut scores.
Yeah.
And so, what the situation is to date is that we would be, until Pennsylvania has a body of data on Pennsylvania educators taking the exam, we wouldn't arbitrarily generate our own cut score. We would be relying on the national cut score as the demarcation for passing the certification. So I know that was one question that you had alluded to leaning into this conversation. I thought I would just clear that up and answer that. I'm trying to think if there was any other pieces that I really wanted to talk about, thinking that I'd have the slide deck in front of me. I think really just reminding folks that, you know, right now we have a lot of flexibility. We want to continue that flexibility and balance that with the highest quality and skilled educators in that space, you know, and we want to make sure that we're wrapping around the implementation supports to get you all there and so that you all feel comfortable moving forward. And I know we got some veteran CS teachers that have been doing this for years, and this isn't going to be, you know, a concern for you all, but that is, I just want to reiterate that we're here for support, and you know, we want to learn and hear from you all as to next steps beyond the 712 certification and the directions that we should go to continue to build the, you know, the community around this particular content area and continue to get more kids opportunities to learn CS. It's going to be critical.
So we've got just a few minutes left. I'm looking through the chat window now to see some things, just to double check. As we've mentioned, Kathy and others, as soon as we're told that the exam is live, and I mean, we've got some friends that are literally kind of like refreshing their screen every day. As soon as we know that it's live, that information will be made public by the department. It'll be posted on the department CS and STEM webpage, the patent webpage. And we will absolutely use our social media and our email communication distribution list, as well as our Schoology course, which I'll share before we leave today, some more information about that. So if you were in the know enough to receive the invitation and the Zoom link to this call, I almost promise you absolutely that in one way or another, you will hear from us. So you don't have to go hunting or refreshing your PDE webpage on your home computer waiting for us. We promise that we will alert you as soon as we know. The questions about so Judd referenced the cut score and the fact that it was when the Praxis exam was chosen, and Judd, I hope I'm okay sharing this because, you know, we're recording, but one of the factors in that is the fact that this exam has been used and it's been proven to be equitable and accessible, and continues to be relevant considering the Commonwealth's goals for computer science education and learning. So that cut score number, I don't think either of us have off the top of our head what that national number is, but we'll definitely make a note of that question. So and just to reiterate Judd's point is that is one of those reasons why you know, the exam was selected and will be in place, is that again, it's not a gotcha. We're not throwing out an arbitrary number that we don't think is achievable, and we're not using those of you that are ready and gung ho, like excited to take it. We're not using you as you know, test runs or like lab rats to determine a cut score, right? That's not the case. Like we don't want anyone to feel as though that their work hasn't been validated and hasn't been honored to this point with that exam. Looking at any other questions from the chat window, or if you do have a question and you'd like to raise your hand or just politely kind of turn on your camera or unmute yourself, we'll take a few minutes to take any other questions.
Hi, Sarah. It's Brian Stanford.
Hi, Brian. What can we do for you? I feel like I'm on like a radio call-in show. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Go ahead, Brian.
So eventually, will teachers need to take the test and achieve a passing score in order to teach it? Because at first you said the good news is if you're already teaching it, you can still keep teaching it. But then it sounded like Judd said 3 to 5 years down the line, we would hope that teachers would get the certification.
So there's sort of two triggers for that space, Brian, and we're still floating between the sort of the policy decision around this. We have two pathways on the table. One is that there would be the trigger would be for if you are an educator and you're sitting in the seat right now teaching CS1, if your district would like you to teach APCS, that would trigger the need for a certification for you to take a certification exam, that you took on an additional course load. And that was something that we had discussed and fleshed out of those early CS for All groups. The other conversation that had come out of that, the other pathway that had come out of that would be that you would be grandfathered, if you are that same situation, you are that teacher, that you could be grandfathered in for forever to continue teaching CS until you retired. I think right now where it seems to be the prevailing consensus is that there would be a 3 to 5 year window for implementation, that those individuals that are currently teaching CS during that 3 to 5 year window could continue to teach CS in their seat. And that the trigger would be either A, the end of the 3 to 5 year window, or B, that additional course load. I think the one thing that is nuanced in that space, which we didn't talk about, is the review and the revision of the course code. So, the department is going through a deep dive into all of the course descriptors and course codes for everything from STEM to social studies or computer science. And as those things continue to get tightened up, if you were an educator that was really teaching maybe a digital literacy course or maybe a more basic computer class, and it was coded for a while as CS, but as that course description has been tightened up and it's reverted to a more of a digital literacy course, that also could be seen as a trigger for you if you wanted to then teach the digital literacy course and teach CS1, that you as the educator would be required to take the certification exam. Now, with all that being said, what we would look at in that space to be would be sort of this, if you look at the Arkansas model, where there would be a provisional or an emergency licensure that would allow you to get through that window till you passed. And if you showed good faith effort in taking either courses or professional learning around CS, that there could be a minimum threshold for you to keep that emergency cert till you got to the space where you passed the certification exam. That's the other sort of pathway that's been batted around and discussed regarding the policy decisions on the sort of the balance between keeping folks and keeping opportunities open for kids and not not advantaging any one particular school or community over another, with making sure that the educators that are in the seats are the educators that should be in the seats.
Thanks, Brian, for helping bring that conversation back up to the top. Question: implications for those of us currently teaching AP CSP. C-Storm, I guess maybe you could add a little bit of extra context. We'll start off with what I think you're meaning, but so this doesn't have any implications for that course itself. So for those of you maybe wondering, the computer science principles is we are big fans of it. It is an introductory advanced placement course, which sounds kind of crazy, but if for teachers that are teaching that computer science principles course, as Jed mentioned, that is a valid CS course. So the same, what he just mentioned about the long-term implications as far as continuing to teach that course and having it be coded in the PIM system, this doesn't have any consequences on the course itself. Specifically the certification and the trigger. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm not understanding your question, C-Storm, and if you want to email us, you can. But just to reiterate to what Brian's question was and Judge's response, is that the grandfathering, or that 3 to 5 year time period, the CS Principles course is a computer science course, and it's recognized as such. So the teachers that are teaching that course and fall into that big list that Judd shared earlier, and we'll make sure that it's sent out with this recording. Those teachers are like basic, perfect little examples of that, why that grandfathering or that 3 to 5 year period is happening, right? We don't want the CS principals course and all of the professional learning offered by some of the various vendors really was the inroad to get more high school CS teachers from other content areas. So they go hand in hand, and this is not going to trigger a consequence or an issue for those folks. Judd, is that any other way to say that?
I think that's spot on. And, just to Brian's point and C Storm's point, we'll clarify that language as we continue to get closer to the release of the certification. As I had mentioned to Sarah, I was just, sort of working on that here as we were getting ready for this conversation, updating some of the language from the last time we had put it in front of leadership, and making sure that it still fits the mission vision of this flexibility and our core values of equity. And if there are ideas or thoughts on sort of this pathway strategy and the leveraging of temporary licensure and grandfather space and professional learning and even post-secondary course taking, if there's some additional recommendations or resources outside the normal CS community, whether it's code or CSTA or ed commissions of the states, our ears are open. We want to make sure that either we have the right resources in front of the team, or B, we know what the field needs and wants to continue to provide experiences for kids. So, I would encourage Brian and the team here to continue to push us in the direction that meets the needs of educators and school communities.
Are there any? We're a little over time, but we know that this is very important to a lot of people in the Zoom room. Are there any other questions that that you'd like to address, kind of for the good of the group here? If not, and as maybe you're formulating or typing in your question, I did switch the slide to show, some of you have asked, like, oh, you keep referencing like the CSNPA group. That there's a link on the screen that's the tiny URL, a link to the monthly meetups. Not just as a shameless plug to our monthly meetups, which this is partially that, but that monthly meetups shared notes doc also has the information regarding that Schoology course and our contact information, and kind of just some good to know information about that, when we're talking about the CSNPA community. And I believe one of my colleagues is dropping that into the chat window too. And as well, the tiny URL and the full version of that link, in case your device or your domain kind of doesn't really like those shortened links. But are there any other questions about the certification or the exam that you feel comfortable sharing publicly? Please, here's your chance to do so. Otherwise, absolutely don't hesitate to use that email address there, that CS for All email address that'll go to Judd and me and the other members of the team. And we, as Judd mentioned, we continue to have these conversations, and we're grateful for your time today, everybody in the room, but especially Judd, as you've kind of hit on. We've had these conversations a lot, and we just wanted at this moment to be able to provide updates and make sure that we really are all on the same page. We recognize that not all of this is new news, but it's important to kind of reiterate and kind of squash any doubts or concern, but also, I guess, as we said, provide that glimmer of hope that the exam is coming. Thanks for posting the link in there. Again, if there aren't any other questions, here's like your last chance, or you can track us down by email. All right. Thank you all for joining us. As we mentioned, a recording of this will be posted to the CS for All Schoology course and the patent website. In the meantime, feel free to reach out to us by email. Again, Judd, thanks for making the time for us in the car, on the sidewalk, in your house, wherever you're always everywhere. Any last words?
Just thanks to you, Sarah, Ethan, Jeremy, and the team for continuing to organize these events to keep the CS community together. And thanks to all of the folks that are on the call. Please, we want to hear from you. And if there's things that we need to be considering or we're not thinking of or things have changed, as Sarah said, we want to know because we want to be responsive to what the needs are of the field. This has been a stakeholder-driven process, and we want it to continue to be that way. So thank you.
So we'll be back in touch soon, hopefully with the great news that the test is available before that December 1st date. But in the meantime, we'll see you around online with our hashtag CSNPA and the other hashtag CS4AllPA. Have a wonderful week, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Ethan.